cover for this?
Just, I'm not going to eat during the meeting, darling.
I'm going to put it in the fridge then.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody. So we have a lot going on today. And I'm still setting up. Good morning, Tressa. Oh gosh, it's some of these faces I haven't seen in so long. Oh, look, it's Lucy. It's Lucy. When am I going to get my hands on that baby? When am I going to get my hands on that baby?
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
How about?
Oh, hi, baby on there.
Okay. That's all good.
Anything on there?
No.
Get your baby.
Yep. All right. So I am.
Once you're ready, Retta, I'll call the meeting to order. But I'll.
Okay.
just letting you
After I stop fussing over the baby, I am trying to bring up the agenda. That is what I'm doing right this minute. Okay. Are people able to see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you enlarge it?
I can.
Too large for me.
That's too big. There.
That's much better.
Okay. All right. Very good.
All right.
All right. By all means.
All righty. Welcome, everyone. Retta has shared the agenda, and I want to call to order the 164th annual meeting of Trinity Church Towson. Wow, 164. And I want to thank you all for being with us. And there are some faces we haven't seen. I shouldn't say we. I haven't seen in quite some time, and it brings joy, and hopefully it doesn't bring a tear to my eye. But there's always that possibility. Some of you know that I can get a little emotional. So with that, I would like to ask Reverend Retta Wiley, our priest in charge, to open us in prayer.
The Lord be with you.
And
Also with you.
Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel at Trinity Episcopal Church in Towson for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. The first order of business is to appoint a secretary for today's meeting. And I would like to appoint the vestry's registrar, Joel Moore, as the secretary. Is there any objections? Anybody want to object to that?
Why should we? Who wants the job?
Okay.
And he's
Thank-
fabulous.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no objections, Joel is the secretary. Couple of other things that I want to point out. I'm going to ask that everybody mute themselves while folks are making presentations and talking. We will use the chat functionality for questions. We'll try to monitor that, and after each individual speaks, we can work to address questions. And before we close the meeting, we can just have open mic time as well. We do have a couple of things that we do have to vote on, and we will have polls that will be presented to you that you'll be able to click on and vote either approval or disapproval of So that's the way we're going to proceed through this. And at this particular point in time, I'd like to ask Joel to review and share the minutes from the last annual meeting, at which point in time, once that's done, we'll be asked to approve those. So it looks like that needs to be a little smaller print, Retta, or if you can widen there we go. Yeah, getting there, almost there.
Good morning. So hopefully people had a chance to look over the minutes from last year and dredge through your memory to remember a year ago, pre-COVID. A lot has happened in the last year. And if you had any corrections or spotted any omissions, please let me know. It was our sort of standard order of meeting where we nominated our new vestry members or continuing vestry members. We did change the bylaws, tweaked the bylaws last year to allow the treasurer to not be a member of the vestry, so to be a non-voting member who could participate beyond the typical term limits of a vestry member. So that's the bylaw section was talked about there. And then, sort of a brief summary of each of the parts of our presentation with outreach, ministry, pastoral care, preschool report, and so on. So did anyone have questions, spot omissions, or errors? Then I think yes. Do we need a motion at that point,
Yes,
point, or do we just?
Someone could unmute themselves and make a motion that we approve these minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay, can I have someone unmute and second that?
I'll second.
Okay, all righty, now everyone gets to vote on the poll. The votes are coming in.
I'm not seeing any votes.
Oh, well.
I see the thing, but I can't figure out how to vote.
I did.
It's just saying we're viewing the questions, and then it has people coming in, but I don't see where it just says end polling. How do we vote?
You
That
must,
is an excellent question.
okay, Ellen is obviously seeing the results.
Yep.
For me, it popped up as soon as I joined the meeting, aye or nay.
Ellen
Well, I
is a
say yes.
co-host.
Ellen, you're the co-host, and that's why you're seeing these, apparently.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Don't you just love technology, everyone?
It just
You know what?
popped
I
up.
think that we can do this by voice.
Yes.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Nobody cares.
Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, the next order of business is vestry elections. I'd like to recognize the nominating committee that we had this year. That was chaired by Lisa Pollock. That includes Lisa, Ron Hall, Reggie Cole, and Diane Starrix-Dugan. So Lisa, if you could present recognize the nominating committee that we had this year. That was chaired by Lisa Pollock. That includes Lisa. I need Diane to mute herself in the other room in my house.
Yes, I know. Sorry.
There. Okay. Sorry for that feedback. Okay, Lisa, the floor is yours.
Sorry, so I'm not super prepared because I didn't know if I was going to present or not. But Joel, can you scroll? Yeah, thank you, because I actually don't have it in front of me. So the nominating committee and I worked together to reach out to a few people who we thought in the Trinity community would be a good fit with the vestry. And so we have two people who've accepted our vestry nominations. The first is Peggy King, and the other is Joni Miller-Smith, right? Did I get that right, Joni? Is it Miller-Smith or Smith-Miller? I apologize. But anyway, both of them have accepted our vestry nomination. And so we'd like to thank them. And then we do have two of our existing vestry members who are going to be doing another term, and that is Joanne Chaplin and Alan Grimm. And I thank both of them for continuing to work with us on the vestry. And I'm really excited to be working with Peggy and Joni. So we're really looking forward to having two new people with us.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Not hearing any. Nominations are closed. We now have the opportunity to vote on these nominations.
I'm not sure whether it's actually letting us vote.
I can say that every time I get an automatic pop-up on my screen, and so I'm not sure, maybe some people are not getting it. I am.
It's popping up on my screen, but I'm not able to actually vote.
Oh.
Maybe that's just me because I'm the host.
Maybe so, but I am able to click on all the boxes.
Okay, very good.
I move that we elect the slate by acclamation.
Do I ever second?
Second, Jill Grimm.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Let me see, do the.
Motion passed. Thank you. Welcome to our new vestry members.
Quick
Yay.
interjection.
Hey,
Quick interjection. Thank you to new members, but is there a link to the annual report? Several people have asked if it is available on the website.
I have not found it myself.
It is not there at this particular point in time because it was still going through some editorial changes, is my understanding.
we got very picky about it. So it will be.
It will be posted later this week, and I apologize for it not being there. We're using this copy that Retta is sharing. So.
Yeah. All right. So I'm heading back to the agenda. There we go.
Okay. So Retta, the floor is yours now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll because you haven't had a chance to read it, I will summarize. I will summarize my own report, but I have some additional remarks to make as well. What I focused on in my report this year is how we have managed to remain a community, a Christ-centered community, nurtured by our worship and tradition in spite of the pandemic, and how after your long time without any leadership, you got a brief break followed by a long time without a church building, and how you have nonetheless been able to maintain continuity and spiritual life as best we were able under these circumstances. Many people stepped up to keep the ministry of this place going. And that included not just staff like Jen and Kathleen and me and Luis and Tressa, whom you'll meet presently if you haven't already met her, also Erin, and our newest staff member, Jill, who has been absolutely instrumental in keeping us going in so many ways. She's been a real blessing to us. You had just met her for the annual meeting last year when suddenly we were forced to close down. So I want to say thank you for her commitment and the commitment of all your staff. But it was not just staff. And it was not just vestry, although your vestry did work very hard and strive to keep us together. It was everybody who did the best that they could to stay connected. And I want to say thank you for that. So I focused on how we found alternative ways of worshiping, whether that was online or outside, and some of the blessings that came out of that. Because our God is a God of redemption and resurrection, even in this crisis, new life was found. We found that worshiping outside, while not everyone's cup of tea, was really lovely and allowed us to connect with the community. One of my favorite days was the blessing of the animals, where we had people who were just walking their dogs come up and join us for prayer and a blessing. And that was lovely. That was truly lovely. We've learned that having an online presence is something we're going to want to keep doing from here on out. And that is very exciting. One of my favorite things that took place, and Claire Hudson will talk about this presently, was setting up a phone tree for Pastoral Care. It was very helpful to me to have that team while I was over busy, dealing with a tremendous amount of administrative stuff, to have that team support me in reaching out to those who were stuck at home, the people who have always been stuck at home for one reason or another, as well as some new people who were stuck at home. And we call that the Vine and Branches Ministry, and I hope others will consider it. People once every month or so who are a part of that team just call someone and just talk to them on the phone for a little bit. I hope that we continue that after everyone is able to get out and about. Eucharistic visits are important and good, but I think it's also nice to just get a phone call every now and again. And so I'm grateful to Liz Masterson, who with Claire set that up. So I failed to give sufficient thanks to Liz Masterson, who has also made it possible for us to manage this year. I want to thank Kathy Evans and all the people who were involved in or donated to ACTC. What we saw this year was that our facilities on the inside, not only do we have opportunities on the outside of our buildings, but we have opportunities, alternative opportunities on the inside to do the ministry that Jesus has called us to do. If you didn't see pictures of ACTC's renovation of our Undercroft or pictures of the Memorial Hall when ACTC was running their food pantry service out of Memorial Hall, it will bring a tear to your eye. It was magnificent. It was simply magnificent. And I hope that in the future, we will discuss other ways to do this sort of thing. It is very tempting for us with our beautiful spaces, our excellent spaces, to say, well, we want to make sure we always have them available to do what we want to do in the spur of the moment. But the truth is that there are so many ways that our buildings can be a blessing to this community and proclaim the love of Christ simply by connecting with people and making our space available to them, both outside and inside. And as I preached today, I hope that we will talk and pray together over the coming weeks about what that might look like. What are some unexpected, crazy ways we could experiment with using our spaces to be a blessing to Towson and to shine a light that attracts people to the love of God? We were lucky enough to receive the Payroll Protection Program grant, and we'll hear more about that later. I also applied for a number of other grants, most of which we were awarded. There was one we were not awarded, the evangelism grant. I couldn't quite convince them that what we were doing was evangelism. I'll get them next year. But that was a big part of my work this year. What we're discovering is that the model of stewardship, the model of annual pledges, is simply not sufficient to sustain the church. We need, of course, to bulk up our stewardship program. Our stewardship committee consists of Haley Mahansky. That's it. Which means that Jen Korshakowski and I are doing all we can to support her in that work. We need very much to build that ministry so that it's not simply an annual handout, but a year-round understanding of what it means to steward our resources as children of God and as followers of Jesus Christ. But what we also need to come to terms with is that the stewardship model, the pledging model, is apparently insufficient for our needs. Our operating budget, as you will see, is almost entirely salaries and compensation. That means we have very little margin to be creative and do new things. We were able to make it through this year because of the grants, but we will not always be awarded hundreds, tens of thousands of dollars from the government to be able to do our work. So we need to think about that, about what we're going to do in the future. How can we reimagine what it means to support the work of this church and what the work should really be? The last thing I want to talk about is fellowship and formation, which really happened at the same time. And Kathleen will talk more about this, but I'm so proud and pleased of the small group ministry that we have cultivated. I think people have found it to be very, very life-giving. It's been an opportunity for us to get to know each other more deeply, to engage with our faith more deeply, and to build trust among one another. And that's something else I hope we will consider in the future, is to keep those things going. Even when we're having formation on site at the church, which I sincerely hope we will do, I hope we will also continue to have opportunities for people to gather online as well as in person, because that's been such a blessing for people who live far away. Haley, for example, drives 45 minutes with her family. Sean and Haley and all the girls, they come 45 minutes to worship. But they've been able to connect with people because of technology. We will need support in the area of technology. We have some people who have excellent skills, but we need more so that the burden of the work and the joy can be shared among others. So as we continue into 2021, I hope we take all of these lessons to heart, regardless of what happens moving forward with the pandemic. I think we'll make better use of all our spaces, indoors and outdoors, build a lay team for our digital ministries, and continue with worship, formation, and fellowship in all the ways we know, in all the ways we're learning, and in all the ways we have yet to discover. Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is for us to learn a little bit about what's been happening with outreach over the last year. And Lisa Regal, if you want to unmute yourself and fill us in.
Thank you, Rich. Am I able to share my screen? Is that a possibility?
I believe so. And
Okay.
I don't believe there's a restriction on who can share.
It says host disabled participant shares screen sharing when I click on it.
Well, then that's here, let me see if I can change that.
Okay, I can adapt if need be.
Try now.
Okay. Oh, yes. Fantastic. Thank you. One moment and we should be in good shape. All right. I hope everyone is able to see a screen that says Outreach 2020 by the numbers and the pictures.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. So I'm going to provide just a very brief snapshot of what we've been up to so far this year in the previous year. And it's really focused on the numbers, but obviously there's much more of a story there. And we included a pretty substantial description of all of our contributions and interactions with the community in the annual report. So once you're able to read that, hopefully that will fill in the gaps for you. But this year we decided to really focus on supporting ACTC and the surprise shop. Obviously, with the pandemic, we really wanted to make sure that the communities that we're most connected to, who really help right in our backyards, were supported. So you'll see that we provided some money to both of those endeavors. And then we also continued our support of McVet, the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training. And we started a relationship with the Student Support Network. Many of you are familiar with this, but those who are not, it is out of the Loch Raven High School. And basically there's an opportunity to support high school students who may not be getting the food needs that they have. They may need other kinds of support financially and in terms of supplies that they need just to be successful students. And even though they're not quite in the building yet this year, they've still been able to use that funding to help the students as they are in their virtual schooling and beyond. And if we think way back, so that was our financial support. If we think way back pre-COVID, we started a Love Your Neighbor campaign where we started collecting sheets and towels, and we worked with ACTC's prison ministry. And this was extremely successful, and we're hopeful that we can do this again in the future. And we greatly appreciate everybody's willingness to do something new and to really put people into a physical place of comfort when they come out of the prison. Many of you know that Marge and Eric worked tirelessly to make 150 masks for McVet, and there were many supplies provided in terms of elastic and the cloth materials to make sure that we could contribute in this way. We weren't able to contribute some of the other things because of what was allowed in during COVID, but they were extremely grateful for the masks. We also were able to do a drive-through blessing to bless the graduates. And during that time, we collected 65 bags of items for the surprise shop and a little over 400 pounds of food for ACTC. And again, like Greta said, this was a great opportunity to do something outside, to think outside the box. And we're excited to try to do something again like this as we progress through and hopefully beyond COVID. We also had to think outside of the box in terms of our school supply bags this year. They were different. We didn't quite need the backpacks as the students were not in school. So we gathered these drawstring bags and we found out what materials they needed. And we were able to collect these materials and really get the students off to a good start. We really appreciated Melissa Jenkins and her family because they opened up literally their doorstep to contributions being made where people could send things through Amazon and Office Max and such. And we have found that this is something we'd like to continue in the future, where people can send things directly to the coordinator of the event or the project. And we really think we'll continue to do that in the future. So thank you to everybody who was able to do that this year. In September, we collected 378 pounds of food for ACTC, and we really hope, again, that if we can drive home any point at this point about outreach, it's that while there may not be any formal activities going on in between certain months as we have those downtimes, please, anything you can do to contribute to ACTC is a huge part of our outreach mission at Trinity. In the fall, we also worked together. Jill brought us a phenomenal idea, and Joni and Ted really worked together with us to collect donations of pet food and supplies to give to the Maryland SPCA. And we also hope to do this in conjunction with the Blessing of the Animals again next year. So this was new, although we've done things with pets in the past, and we were excited to have that opportunity again. Everybody knows about the ACTC Thanksgiving bags, and we always tip our hats off to Pat Shaw for all that she does. And even this year, again, making adaptations. We completed 100 bags from Trinity, and we also had additional funding to help this year. And there were over 3,000 bags that were prepared for our families and individuals in the community that needed them. And last but not least, we had 18 Christmas bags. We had to move away from the boxes in order to get the bags onto the ships for the seafarers. And we also called out to you all for magazines and calendars. And we tried to think of anything that we might be able to do to ease their time being out at sea during the pandemic and the restrictions that put on us. And we were thrilled to have everybody's help with that. So again, thank you all very, very much for everything that you've done to help us think differently this year. And we look forward to continuing to adapt and continuing to serve our community.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And just as a reminder, everybody, as we start to regather next Sunday in the church, the wagon will be there. Please, food can always be dropped off on Sundays, and we will make sure that it gets blessed and find its way to ACTC. So that ministry that's been somewhat on hold because we haven't been gathering on Sundays, we will get that started again next Sunday. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Next up is Pastoral Care, and I believe we've got Claire Hudson available to speak to us on what's been going on for Pastoral Care.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see the faces that I can see. The Pastoral Care team works together with our clergy to identify and provide the caregiving needs for our Trinity family. Previously, we've done that through visits, Eucharist, cards, and phone calls. However, during the pandemic, we were unable clearly to visit, but we're still able to send cards and make phone calls. At this time, the Vines and Branches team, also known as the telephone ministry, was very, very helpful in staying in touch with our shut-ins. Lots of phone calls have been made, lots of contacts have been made, and I found them to be encouraging, supportive, and clearly filled with love. The phone calls that I've been involved in have been absolutely amazing and have not only been rewarding to me, but they've been truly exhilarating to chat with the people that I haven't seen in so long. In the future, we hope to continue with this program. We hope to continue with our visits when we can. And we still will, again, like I said, continue with cards and phone calls. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Claire. And it's during this pandemic, the work that's been done with this phone tree, staying in touch with people has been so critical. It's a ministry that we can't get enough of, so to speak. And again, thank you to Claire and all of you that are involved in that particular ministry. Okay, next, the agenda says Preschool, Amanda Dean. Well, Amanda is on leave this school year, and we have been graced with Tressa Andrews to step up as our interim director of Trinity Episcopal Preschool. And Tressa is with us this morning to let us know what's been happening at the school over the last year. So Tressa, if you want to unmute yourself and let us know, appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I unfortunately haven't had the pleasure of meeting most of you, and hope once we rejoin in church next week that I'll actually be able to meet you in person. But until then, I wanted to share with you some things that we have been dealing with this past year, good and bad. So is there a way for me to share my screen as well? Or, because I have like just pictorials.
You should, so you should have a share screen.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, good. And while she's fiddling, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done, because you've been amazing.
Oh, thank you. I don't know, there's sometimes where, especially during this pandemic, and working with children, it is questionable as to how you can remain 6 feet apart and do the things that you need to do to make sure that everybody's kept safe when we've been in person. So this past year, well, to start with, we went from when the state shut down, we went from being in person and doing what we normally do, which is phenomenal, but we had to go virtual. So I don't know how many of you really, well, actually, most of you should know, children are very energetic and in person, like they need to be together physically. So when we had to go virtual, it was a challenge. We had to not only create a curriculum, but we also had to make it interactive for 2, 3s, and 4 and 5-year-olds. So we had to limit and change some things, but we actually were able to flourish. I mean, the parents were on board. We did it every day for a couple months. These are just some examples. Like we did a lot of hands-on lessons. Like we, had the butterflies come out. They explored with tadpoles and frogs. So even though we were virtual, we were able to do a lot of hands-on activities through the help from the families. But we were so anxious to get back in person. So once we were gotten the chance, obviously, until then, we still had to deal with the graduation. We had preschoolers that were moving on. So the only way we could, because we weren't really allowed to be in person, we got a caravan together so that they could get their gifts, so that they could get their caps and gowns. So we met in the parking lot, in ICS parking lot, and we did a virtual actually it was in person, but we did a lot of exchanging. So that way the next phase was we had our very first virtual graduation, which was definitely interesting. It was not what we wanted, but it also gave other families that could never have been there, grandparents that were in other states, it gave them the opportunity to be part of it. And the children loved seeing themselves and being able to talk on a screen about all the things that they learned. So that was definitely something different this year that we had would never have imagined we would be doing. And then we had the opportunity finally to open up. We had some challenges. We only had 20 students, which is like not even 1/3 of what we normally have. But we were able to open up. This gave us an opportunity to really fine tune a lot of the restrictions we were given by the state, some of the things that we were mandated to do. And the children were required to wear masks. Same with the actual teachers were all day, but we found ways to actually still interact safely with such young children. And they were so excited to be back. The parents were excited for them to be back. So even though we were challenged with the number of children, it was such a blessing to have them home finally. So we went through the summer, we worked out the kinks. We finally had a welcome back home. Finally, we didn't have all 6 classes because everybody was scared. Everybody was nervous. It really hit us hard because we had almost 60 families, and then we dropped to half of that after the school year start, which was devastating financially. And not only that, but we understood our families' needs. So that's why we opened, as nervous as the teachers were about the pandemic, about the virus, about being in person, and all of the risks that we were taking. It was worth it because it is a mission that that I know the church holds very closely, as well as the teachers. So these were the classes. We had 4 very small groups, which was essential. We wanted to make sure that we were safe and that they weren't interacting with each other, which was not what we normally do. As a school, we are usually get together in the beginning, get together at the end. But we found other ways. So we had our first back to school night Zoom which was another adventure we just never expected to have. Zoom became our friends. So we shared with the parents some of the things we were doing. We did a lot of things that were recommended, but also things that were above what was recommended. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to keep the sanitizing up, to keep the children actively learning. But we found ways. So for instance, we couldn't take field trips. So we did our own pumpkin patch. We brought pumpkins to them. We did like outside, they got to get their own pumpkins. We got to do all the things we normally do. The only drawback this year was we couldn't have parents as involved. Parents couldn't come in, parents couldn't volunteer. But we found other ways to incorporate the families as much as we could with the limitations we had. So then Halloween, we had our own, most of the holidays we had to do in-house, but we also did a drive-through trick or treat. And we were so excited. First time for everything. This year was a first for a lot of things. So we had the pleasure of actually collaborating for it's been a while since we've been able to do things with some of the church members, which we missed. And so we were able to do a trick or treat drive-through, which was COVID safe in our parking lot. And we had a lot of past students come through as well. So that was definitely a success. So in November, I didn't mean to skip over November, but we had 2 weeks where we were closed as a school. We had our very first case that I believe was a false positive, but we were out for 2 weeks, which is a big chunk of time. Nobody else in the school ended up being positive, no other teachers. The child was asymptomatic. So we were out right before Thanksgiving. So unfortunately, we couldn't do the things that we normally do, which would be to help ACTC, because normally we collect bags as well. Our plan was, and we put it into motion, but we were in quarantine. So we didn't quite feel safe bringing all the bags and so forth, but each family, a couple of families were able to get them in before. But so that was the only downside, is that we weren't part of that, like we usually are. So come December, when we came back, we had a PJ collection and donation. So we collected pajamas and books for children so they could get a good night's sleep and so that they could continue to learn. The kids loved us. So there was ways to outreach even during a pandemic. Then in December, we also, we were trying to deal with the fact of, the first responders, a lot of the hospitals around us, we collected, the children made cards, and we collected a lot of different things for the different hospital workers and for the COVID patients. We also made a CD, which of the children singing Christmas songs. So we presented it with the local hospitals. And this was a response that we got from some. They were very gracious. They were really excited and they loved the CD. So then we had Christmas time. We were still doing some of the things we could do, like we were doing the scarves for the homeless. We did pictures because we couldn't bring photographers in for Christmas. So I did the photos. The donations for the photos went towards the Special Olympics. I did the super plunge for the polar bears. So those donations that the children brought in were also a way for them to connect with the community, even during a pandemic. These were just some most recent. We, are never usually in school when it snows, but we had one opportunity where it was snowing exactly when we were there. So just being able to let them be kids and to let us play in the snow together was a relief for some of the times that have been difficult this year. Something to look forward to, and hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to share with the church as well, is the progress that we're going to be making on our outdoor classroom, which is in between the surprise shop and the church building and behind the playground. So our goals, we had professional development. We set some goals as to why we want this outdoor classroom. It is to honor a former director, Lisa, and also to really connect the community, the church, and the preschool in a mission that I think would be extremely beneficial to everybody that is surrounding in our area. So I want to say one more thing. We have something, actually, as hard as it was this year, we've had some blessings. We've had all the teachers are finally vaccinated. It only took a good month of doing it, but Jill finally was able to get us a link, and all of us are getting our second. Some of us are still getting the second vaccine. We only had 3 positive cases of COVID in the 9 months we've been open. One was probably a false positive, one was a teacher, and one was a child. But thank goodness we were blessed, because other schools had multiple cases and had really difficult years ahead of them. So we've steadily increased our enrollment slowly, and we're working on that new addition to the outdoor classroom, which I think will enhance our program. And we're looking forward to spring and new beginnings, and the fact of that we get to open back up and meet again at church. So I want to thank you all for being patient and letting me talk, because this year was a very busy year, but challenging, but we're looking forward and ahead. Thank you. Oh, I guess I
Thank
can
you
stop
so much,
sharing. How am I
Tressa.
supposed to stop? No problem.
Any questions for Tressa?
I know it was a lot I threw at you at once.
It is amazing what our preschool, Trinity Episcopal Preschool, does, and what you were able to accomplish this past year during the pandemic. I started off saying I was going to get emotional possibly. Well, you were the first one to bring tears to my eyes.
It was a really difficult year, but if we had not had the support of the church, we wouldn't be still remaining open. And I'm not just talking about the financial aspect. I'm talking about like the support, because as scared as we were to move forward during a pandemic, because you don't know who has it, and so it was very it was scary, but we managed to do the right thing for this community that we serve.
And you managed to do it without communicating that fear to the children. They're so happy. And I know it's not appropriate, but I want to say again how grateful I am for all the work that you've done and how willing you've been to work in collaboration with the church team. That's been really important. And I hope that that is something that we can build with the lay community as well. That we can, and you and I have talked about this, how good it would be for us to work in tandem, particularly with things like the outdoor classroom and events and so on. We had parish members at the trick or treat drive-through, and it was a hoot. Joe Greenbeck was there right next to me saying "har" as we at the pirate table. So, and Stephanie Foy and the surprise shop had a table, and that was really beautiful. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, next is Stephanie Foy to fill us in on what's been going on at the surprise shop this past year.
Well, the surprise shop has had its ups and downs, as did the preschool. We were closed from March 13th, when the shutdown began, through the beginning of June. So suffice it to say, without the PPP loan, we probably would have sunk to the bottom, but that loan helped to pay salaries and benefits for Aaron and Peggy during the time that we had to be closed. So that was greatly appreciated. Regardless of all our problems in 2020, we will be going forward into our 57th year, beginning on April 1st. And we will be open 6 days a week in March. Every day, Monday through Saturday from 10 to 4, we will be open. Saturday was our first day open. We had 2 volunteers that were parishioners and 2 volunteers that were not parishioners that worked Saturday. And I have not heard how much we took in. It was very slow in the morning, but it did pick up in the afternoon. We are very proud, obviously, of our longevity in the Towson community, as well as, of course, the Trinity community. And we always try to pay our own way. So we're trying to get back to that point, but we still have a ways to go. Luckily, we did find a new treasurer to help us count our money. Greg Gabel, our junior warden's wife, Nancy, stepped up to that role. And ironically, she was the perfect fit. So I think it was the Holy Spirit at work, because she's doing this job for us, which is very similar to the job that she did before she retired. So it's kind of a little miracle as far as I can tell. We were able still, even with the closure, to donate over $4,000 worth of merchandise to clients who go into ACTC and voice their needs. They come over to the shop with a card that indicates what they need. Sometimes it's household goods, mostly it's clothes, and we help them to find things that meet their needs. So your donations during this time have just kept us going as well. Without donations, we would have nothing, because we cannot do out public consignment yet. We are only allowed to have 3 people. Those of you who have come to our Christmas coffees in the past know how small our back room is. And we're only allowed to have 3 people in there at a time. So we could not be doing public consignment. So the only people that are consigning at this time are volunteers who can write their own contracts. And we still minimize the number of people that are in the room. We did not have our bag sale this year, because usually we have our bag sale in July, at the end of the July, and then we close down for a deep cleaning for vacation. Obviously, since we were closed and did not reopen until June 1st, we had not really accumulated enough stuff that we needed to have a bag sale to clean it all out. So we did a yard sale. Well, yard sales have turned into a good scene. We have now done 3 yard sales last year, and our first yard sale for this year will be April 9th and 10th. Pray for sunshine. And if you have any furniture hanging around that you want to get rid of, now is the time, because we know that when people drive down the street, drive down Allegheny, furniture makes them stop the car. Don't ask me what it is, but they stop their cars. So furniture, keep saving that for us for the 9th and 10th of April. How can you help us to continue our ministry? Well, keep bringing us those donations Wednesdays and Fridays from 10 to 3. You all have heard by now about our underwear ministry. It's called Janet's Drawers. We give away socks and underwear to people in need. You can't sell used socks and underwear, so you have to have new. So, if you're at the Goodwill or you're at Savers and there's a bag of, there's a pack of brand new underwear and you can get it and give it to us. We also, of course, accept cash to buy underwear, which we appreciate the donation of the outreach team to help us buy underwear. We still need volunteers at the shop. our worst day during the week to staff is Tuesday. And of course, we need volunteers on Saturday. We need you to save things for the upcoming yard sale, which I already told you, and we would like you to come and shop. We have contact tracing, you sign in, we take your temperature, and it's never really crowded. But if you're afraid of crowds, come Saturday morning from 10 to 12, because that's usually the slowest time. Other than that, I think that's it. I have been having this brainstorm. That I have a laughing grandchild being chased. I have this brainstorm that if I had some people to stand out on the bypass with sandwich boards on Saturdays and say there's a thrift shop down this street that you could come to. I think that would be really cool if I could get somebody to make some sandwich boards and stand out there and direct traffic. Another brainstorm I had was somebody who could do some more PR for us. We could use contacts with papers and local community papers. Somebody who came in Saturday, we had quite a few new people said they had seen Peggy King's post on Nextdoor. It really does help. And the other brainstorm I had recently was that I'd like to get letters written to all the major underwear companies to try to solicit donations for our ministry, Janet's Drawers. You've seen the commercials of Bomba, is it Bomba socks or something? And that for every pair they sell, they give a pair. I think we could tap into some of those resources. So thank you to everybody. I mean, I'll forget somebody if I say specific names, but I really think there's been a team effort at Trinity through this pandemic, and that's what's kept us going. We're all just doing the best we can. We're supporting each other, and what else can we do that gets us through? So please come see us at the shop and volunteer if you can.
Thank you very much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Any questions about the shop?
Oh, I forgot to mention, we are buying the computer system. Those of you that contributed to the computer fund, we raised over $10,000 thanks to Pont Hall, who wrote the letters and wrote the thank you notes. And we are already looking into the consignment system. And the good news from last week, Aaron talked to the one company and their price has actually come down. So we may be able to secure the computer system for less than we anticipated, which would be helpful. And we'd like to start it on a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not full, obviously, but part-time in May and June so that we learn how to use it. And we hope to reinstate public consignment by the fall. So I forgot that, sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, turn the floor over to Kathleen to fill everybody in on what's been happening within our parish life.
We did have a little parish life before the pandemic hit, January, February, and half of March. In fact, our last second Sunday breakfast was a potluck at our annual meeting last year. That's the last time we were all together sharing a meal together. But what we discovered during the pandemic, I think, is that it could spark creativity and resilience in us in really unexpected ways. Participation in the formation, as Retta mentioned, has blossomed from just a circle of 8 to 12 adults on Sunday morning and a Bible study group to 5 small groups in addition to the Bible study group that involve at least 40 people. So that has been an amazing learning that people will participate in small groups, especially if they don't have to drive to church to do it. So we might be keeping up some Zoom small groups even when we get back in person. The topics we used in small groups ranged from Bible stories everybody should know, to the Beatitudes, to the music of Advent and Christmas, to civil discourse, and some groups are now doing the poetry of Emily Dickinson. And I encourage anybody who hasn't been in a small group just to go to one meeting to give it a try. Not only is it Christian formation, but it's parish life, as Retta mentioned, rolled into one. And then the videos on Facebook and our YouTube channel by me have exposed a lot of people beyond just our small Sunday school circle to what we do in Sunday school and to Bible stories told in the godly play style. We also, before the pandemic, and because I'm seeing the Grimms there, we started a 5 o'clock Eucharist, a quiet to say type Eucharist, and there was a dinner after every Eucharist. So we could only do it up to the middle of March, but the Grimms started this marvelous family games night as part once a month. And yes, and Lily and Willow and Jill and Alan all led us in new and interesting board games as well as old ones. We lost, as I said, the in-person contact at coffee hour, but Jill Dumser set up these wonderful welcome tables that were decorated seasonally and beautifully for anybody who participated in the outdoor worship. And I think that somebody already talked about the drive-through events. One of them we did in conjunction with Outreach, as Lisa Regal mentioned. And we honored, as part of Parish Life, the high school seniors who didn't have graduation celebrations in person. And the other drive-through was this really fun and funny Christmas pageant that was drive-by. And many of you either dressed up or helped with props or set up or clean up. And we had various little vignettes of the Christmas story. And for a lot of extra fun during Christmas, several of us planted magi, 4-foot wooden silhouettes in the yards of various parishioners. About 20 people got visits from the wandering wise men. And most importantly to me, it just makes me smile and cry tears of joy. And at the same time was our video that we all worked on together. Generations, old people, young people, high school students, middle school students, all read a sentence of the Gospel of Luke, the Christmas story. And Brendan Bailey, who was a new parishioner, not only directed it and filmed it, but he spliced it all together. He edited it, and you can still see it. It's only 6 minutes, and you can see a lot of people that you love from Trinity saying one of the sentences of the Christmas story, and it's on our YouTube channel. Because of the pandemic, the faithful people of Trinity really have demonstrated resilience and creativity infinitely more, as it says in the prayer book, than we could have hoped or imagined. And so I have a hopeful heart that there's going to be more imagination and deeper faith from the people of good people of Trinity to spread the gospel in new ways and do God's work of love in the world. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Kathleen. I personally thoroughly enjoyed the drive-through pageant. I thought that was awesome. And just as a preview, we've got another one coming up. I believe it's going to occur on Palm Sunday. Correct me? Yes.
4 p.m.
Okay, we got another one coming. So mark your calendar for the drive-through.
And I'm in need of another Jesus, Rich.
Oh, well.
Not that I'm singling you out.
It's going to be awesome. It's seriously going to be awesome. You do not want to miss the Palm Sunday Holy Week pageant, whatever this extravaganza.
Kathleen and Jill are working and collaborating on putting this together. Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Next, our youth, J2A, Ellen and whoever you have to join you can all unmute yourselves and fill us in on what the youth have been up to.
Yes, Jim, I don't believe is feeling up to being here today, so he is not with us. And apparently our youth think that you will all bite. So they have, they're here, but they're not quite as vocal, but they're going to tell me if I do this right, Jack? You're going to tell me if I'm on the mark. Okay. So we began meeting, as you all might remember, before we all shut down, we hosted a spectacular Fat Tuesday pancake dinner the night before Ash Wednesday 2020, and had a wonderful, wonderful representation from both the preschool families and also the church, and helped us to raise, and I don't remember, it's been like a blur, but we did really well with that fundraiser towards our pilgrimage trip, which was supposed to be held during the summer of 2021. This year we would have gone. We've had to delay that by a year at least because of our fundraising was completely shut down. So we are looking at anticipating 2022. We did choose as a group. We looked at a lot of different opportunities, and the youth have chosen Colorado Springs is where we're going to be doing our pilgrimage when we go. So you'll hear more about that as we move forward. But during the stay-at-home time, we have been meeting weekly through Zoom, and we took the summer off, but we met throughout the spring, and then we picked back up in the fall. We started to do the Beatitude sessions, and so we did the 12 or so many weeks of learning about the Beatitudes and what it meant to be a peacemaker, what it meant to stand up for and be the voice of others. We talked about a lot of those issues. After we finished the Beatitudes, we have moved into studying Jesus's parables. And so each week, one of the youth is responsible for finding the parable, bringing it to the class, and leading the discussion on what does that parable mean. So we have learned, Cooper brought us the parable of the lost sheep, and we learned that Jesus was willing to leave 99 sheep safely, I'm sure, aside to go hunt for the one who was missing. And we learned and talked about what did that mean for us, meaning that Jesus would find us and help us if we were lost. Jack brought us the parable of the mustard seed. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree. So the birds come and perch in its branches. We talked about the smallest faith could grow into something spectacular, just as the church started very small and grew into what it is today. We also talked about how a movement, something social justice, can start very small and can move into something very, very big, like something like Black Lives Matter, when people say this is something very important and this needs to grow and we all need to put our efforts towards it. Owen brought us the parable of the two sons, which we learned was about keeping your word. It's not okay to say to the father, yes, I'll absolutely go in the field and I'll help you and do that job, and then not do it. If you say, no, I'm not going to do it, but you change your mind and do it because you know it's right, then that matters. And so we talked a lot about keeping your word and what it meant to make a promise to someone and to follow through on the commitments that you needed to make. And last week, Holly brought us the weeds among the wheat. And we learned about how sometimes weeds get mixed in with the wheat, and yet we don't necessarily know which one somebody is. And somebody might be good and bad, but we don't want to prejudge and consider them to be weeds and yank them out where they have a chance to change, to repent, to become something spectacular. So we, talked a lot about that. And why did Jesus say in the parable, just leave the weeds alone, and at the judgment day, they will be separated? So we learned a lot about the fact that sometimes we act like weeds and sometimes we act like wheat, and it's not up to us to choose that with somebody else. So next week, it will be Delaney, and we will be delighted to see what she brings to the table. And then each one of the youth after that will continue to do that. And so that's what we've been up to. We've had a couple of game nights thrown in there for fun, and we are doing our best to learn. Jack, did I get it right? Lily, did I get it right? Yes. Okay. There you go. Got it right. And just if I could, just a reminder that Jim is going through his treatments. He goes into the hospital on the 22nd for his long procedures and the bone marrow transplant. So if you all keep him in your prayers, we would really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Anybody have any questions? What I recall was you talked about the pancake supper. Well, that pancake supper, actually, the week that we went into lockdown, was featured in the Towson Times. You know, a picture of the entire youth and an article. So the Towson community learned all about what had happened. It was kind of unfortunate that we had to shut down, because hopefully some folks might have found their way to us based upon that. But thanks a lot. It's wonderful to hear that the youth is staying involved and you guys are meeting on a regular basis. All right.
Rich,
yes.
Please allow me to interrupt.
Certainly.
Somehow we failed to get music on the agenda, and Hardwick is here to talk to us about music, and I wonder if you could shoehorn him in.
Now would be a perfect opportunity if Hardwick is ready.
That would be great. Thank you.
I just unmuted.
Linda.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you all. It's good to see everybody. The music program was able to stay at work thanks to Retta's and Mary's inventive manner of recording our service renditions, and we're practicing as we speak, as a matter of fact, and we'll have madrigalists on the porch before you enter the robing room in the sanctuary. We'll be on the choir will be on the porch performing Palm Sunday carols, if you will. And one of the stations planned for that afternoon. And we will have special music at the Palm Sunday service. So we're bringing singers back, either distanced outside or one singer inside the sanctuary, or 4 singers spaced apart with masks. So we haven't let COVID defeat us. And by the way, I just got my vaccination from the law offices of Johnson, Johnson, and Janssen out at the Timonium Fairgrounds. So being affiliated with the preschool was very helpful in that happening, as all the Baltimore County employees were out there getting their vaccinations. So that's an encouraging sign. Before Advent, we were able to record all styles of music. And by the way, the choir is always at a volunteer status. So even though we have section leaders from Morgan University and Towson University, we welcome volunteers. And Mary Beth Jorgensen has been a faithful volunteer the whole time I've been at Trinity. And we welcome all to participate. We rehearse Thursday evenings from 7:30 until 9, distanced and masked, of course. And we have music planned for Holy Week, and Holy Week was about the last time we were able to sing last year during COVID, except for Pentecost. We did come back then. And so the music is alive and well. We were, through the Anagram Fund, we were able to bring the organ back up to par. That work was completed during the COVID quarantine, national quarantine, if you will. And so the organ is in good shape for use. We hope to hear its joyous sound soon as a congregation. If there are any questions? All right, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Hardwick, and thank you for all that was done. I know during Advent, you and the singers recorded music that we used in our small group studies during during Advent, and that was a wonderful way to keep music a part of our parish life during this time when we weren't able to actually be together, making joyful noise with you.
And it was lovely to have the contrast of the music team,
yes,
who also did some of those videos. The contrast with the choir, it was beautiful and very helpful. Thank you.
All right, alrighty, Greg, floor is yours. Fill us in on what's happening with all the property.
Well, we got a lot going on. It's we really miss seeing everybody. I miss seeing all you guys. It's great seeing everybody's face here. Anybody that's owned an old house knows that there's always something to do, and there's always been a lot to do around the church. So we've been busy this year, and luckily we've had the resources to do that, those projects. But one of the big things you'll notice when you drive up is the driveway's been repaved, and we did that with the long-term property maintenance fund. But we also had to replace the water line from the street to the church. The stucco was falling off the back of the guild room. So there's always just something going on. I mean, we've something to fix. So we've all taken care of that. Also, the ACTC did all that work in the basement that Retta has referenced. And so we're still working on getting that cleaned up and all that sort of stuff. We have some water leakage in the foundation, so we had to bring in topsoil. We just finished that project and doing the gutters. Like I say, there's always just something to do around there. What we're in the middle of the project is right now is we got a grant from the diocese to install ADA compliant door openers. So the electrical work will be finished tomorrow, and then the company can come in and install all those openers in the parish hall and the men and ladies bathroom and the front door to the church. So it's a lot of activity there. The next thing that's going to happen, and really what I miss is, a lot of the projects we did was the fellowship that's involved, getting around, everybody rolling up your sleeves, getting out there and just sort of talking while you're doing the work. And so hopefully we'll be able to do that with cleaning up the outside coming up soon. I mean, a lot of people are getting vaccinated. It's outside, so we'll be able to have groups working on different sections of the property. The other thing that, so that's one of the things I hope to have happen, the fellowship come back in. The other thing that was disappointing was that, for me at least, is we were recreating the property and the grounds committees. And because of the pandemic, we were unable to gather. But I hope to reconstitute all that and get started with getting that all organized again and getting back to the normal way of operating with all those committees, because they've always been so helpful and everybody's always pitched in to do things. So that's basically what we've been doing in the time that we've been away from the church. The place is looking great, and we hope to keep it up like that. So that's basically my report right there. Any questions? Okay, it's me. I'm done.
Thank you, Greg. I know just in the last few days, the work finishing landscape type work on the driveway has just been completed, and I saw that yesterday, and it looks very good. Thank you. Alrighty.
We have had a question.
Oh, okay.
We had a question about the status of the Joyce Routsen fund for that memorial garden. That fund is still in place. That was one of the committees that Greg was referring to that we were trying to pull together, and then that all fell apart. So that is now is actually a great time if you're interested in doing that and reassembling that group, since it's spring, so we can make some decisions about where and how to remember Joyce.
Yeah, I think too, the property committee one of the charges was to go through and identify all the areas that are dedicated to memorials for parishioners throughout the years, and to have a record of that so that we know what is where and can acknowledge those memorial gifts. So when we get started again, that's one of the first things we'll do. So.
Thank you. All right, next up is the finance group, Jack, Greg, Ayad, and Jen.
Well, since excuse me, since my report is going to be in the final annual report, which will be distributed, I'm going to fly low. It's getting late, and I'll just run over the tops. We ended this year without a deficit for several reasons. First, stewardship was good. Second, our expenses were down. Third, salaries were reduced during the worst of the year. And fourth, we received a payroll protection plan loan, which has been forgiven. So we are doing well there. We ended the year with $22,860 in our checking account. And in the published report, there will be a summary of income and expenses. The endowment, we never had to touch capital. We withdrew some interest. And we have never, hello, Jen, which we have never, we've never had to use anything but the income from the endowment. We've talked about grants already. We did do a budget for next year, but it's subject to review and change monthly because things are so fluid right now. Laurel Valenti, who is a CPA, did a financial review in 2019 and gave us a favorable report. And we're going to do one with a committee consisting of Tracy Martin, myself, and Jen Krakowski in order to review the 20th. And lastly, I just wanted to speak to and thank all the people who worked on the finances this year. Greg Iotti, who is chairman of the Finance Committee, Tracy Martin, who's always here and is active on the, she worked hard on the PPP loan, and she's always involved in the investments along with Joel Moore and Ellen Torres, Mac Price, and Pat Shaw, and of course Jen, who's up now. So that's all I'm going to say because you can read it, and we can get this thing finished. And if Greg or Pat have anything, Jen have anything to say, now is their chance.
I just wanted to add that we did receive the first PPP loan and it was forgiven. We found out a couple of days ago, so that means that the loan becomes a grant and we don't have to pay it back. And we also applied for a second round of the PPP loan, which we really could use as well. So we will let the congregation know if and when that is approved. And just thanks to Rich and Tracy on helping me with those applications. There was a lot of work involved, and we're excited that we had the opportunity to even get that to support the church and the preschool and the surprise shop. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to Jen, especially for the work that she's done to keep us solvent. The work that the whole finance committee has done to keep us attentive to what our means are and what is possible for us. Something I left out in my report, and I should not have, is that another reason we were able to get through the year successfully is that we had to cut staff hours. And so, so understand that we have brought our costs under control in a variety of ways, not just by finding sources of income besides pledge income, but also by cutting staff hours, which was not what we wanted to do. Not at all what we wanted to do. If anything, we needed more staff hours in order to be as creative and effective as we wanted to be during the pandemic. But I would like for you to take a moment to rest in gratitude and maybe express your gratitude to your staff who managed with reduced means and reduced opportunity to really keep Trinity thriving and a place where we could encounter Christ and bring Christ to the world.
Thank you, Retta. And thank you to everybody that's been involved with finances, and we continue to move forward. Jen mentioned the second PPP loan. On Friday, we did receive notification from our bank that it is now in the hands of the SBA. So we are making progress, and that's very good. Alrighty, we're coming to a close here, almost finished. Greg, if you want to take the floor at this point.
I shall. So this is a sort of a sad part for me, because we have people that are moving on that have done their service, and we want to acknowledge that, because I've enjoyed working with both Jack Gillette and Linda Jolly. You know, it's just as you get to work with these people, it's just, you get these wonderful, you find out so much more about them. And so for Jack, I mean, Jack's one of those guys who'll sort of say what we're thinking, you know, as he did in the beginning, like, nobody else wants to do this. It's like, yeah, you're right, but we're all thinking that. So we appreciate that honesty, Jack, and all that sort of thing. And one of the real losses will be your institutional knowledge. I mean, you have a lot of history and a lot of understanding of the processes. So we will miss that, but we really do appreciate all that you brought to the vestry. And
well, I'm not dead.
True statement. As I said, Jack will say what we're all thinking. So, and then for Linda, you know, one of the things that the strength that Linda brought to the vestry was that she was always, you know, if you get in these vestry meetings, you get into a lot of the nitty gritty and the details, and you sort of go wandering through all this stuff. It can be mind numbing at times. One of the things that Linda brought was, she always brought us back to the focus on the spiritual nature of what we're called to do. And I think I really appreciated that, as it brought everything into focus and made us remember what our mission is. And our mission is to carry the message of God into the community. So thank you, both Linda and Jack, for all your service. We have a little something we'll present to you next time that we gather in person, I believe. So we will have that. So there's a couple other people, and I'll make this quick because it's been a long meeting, I understand. We have a couple that are moving on. Marge and Eric Everetts are moving on. Sadly, they did a great job. Marge was the co-chair of the outreach committee, and both Eric and Marge were greeters, the smiling faces that we see at the door. And we wish them all the joy and happiness and health as they continue on their journey. So thank you for your service. So there are a couple other people that I want to just acknowledge. Past year, what a goofy year it's been, and we've been able to carry our services. I'd like to acknowledge Mary Sykes for what she's done in the production of the virtual services, because that is not a small task. She's brought it to a real professional presentation. And so if you watch those things, it's very impressive. So thank you, Mary, for all that sort of thing. There's been a lot with just setting up, running cable and getting computers together and lighting and all that stuff. So thank you there. And also the whole vestry. A lot of you have probably been on the vestry. What we have been faced with as a church and the creative ideas that have flowed from the vestry has spent a lot of time coming up with ways to deal with the pandemic issues that have hit the church. And I think you all can give yourself a pat on the back. It's been a wonderful experience as we all come together and we've made lemonade out of lemons. So thank you all very much, and everybody that's volunteered their time. So thank you again. So that's what I got.
Thank you for all those thank yous. And it has been a year, and I'm glad that we're hopefully seeing the light at the end of this pandemic tunnel. You know, it's no longer 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It's become 12 months to get through it, and we have. And Trinity, as you have just heard for the last hour and a half, and I didn't think we were going to go an hour and a half, but we have just spent an hour and a half talking about and learning about all that has happened in this last year, at a time when we've been dealing with a pandemic. And this church's ministry has continued to grow and thrive through this pandemic. And I am just moved and so proud to be a part of this community. And you should all feel very, very proud yourself to have been a part of this. And it's wonderful to see you all today. And I am so looking forward to next Sunday, possibly seeing some of you in person. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Retta to close us in prayer. And I do ask that all of the vestry members stay on after that closing prayer for a very short vestry meeting. That's both all of those that are current members, as well as the two new members that have just been elected. Okay, thank you.
Rich, are others free to stay if they care to?
Sure, if they want to.
Excellent. Let us pray. Almighty God, you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, to reconcile the world to yourself. We praise and bless you for those whom you have sent in the power of the Spirit to preach the gospel to all nations. We thank you that in all parts of the earth, a community of love has been gathered together by their prayers and labors, and that in every place your servants call upon your name. We give you thanks especially for this place, Trinity Church in Towson, where we may be a Christ-centered community, nurtured by you, by the Holy Spirit, by our worship and our traditions, inclusive and dedicated to the coming of your kingdom. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours forever and ever. Amen.
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 And a big thanks to Ellen Morthole for designing the annual report, which you'll see in the coming days.
Yes, I will, once I have the final edited version, it will get posted out onto the website, and we'll make sure that that's communicated